sweetie. Hello. She doesn't like to stay put. It's a special day today, isn't it? Yes, very special. Okay. So it's actually quite hard for me to just believe the fact that I'm actually sitting down to discuss what I'm about to discuss. As you can tell by the title of this video, this is going to be a review of Kerli's new single, Savages, and also a discussion about the album announcement, Shadow Works, which is the upcoming album that is her third body of work, but it's her second full length that she's ever actually fully released, because Utopia was an EP, you know the whole deal. And the album comes out on February 22nd, and this is the first single from it. None of the 2016 songs that were released are going to be on this record, so we now know the track list, and so we know a lot of information, a lot more than I was actually expecting to find out all at once. So that's exciting, but it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a sudden amount of information that, it's been building up over time so long, just waiting and waiting to find out information about this record. And the fact that we now know so much about it is it's still kind of, I'm having trouble processing this. For those who follow my channel, they'll know I'm a very big Kerli fan. I would consider myself a moonchild. She's one of the major artists that made me want to make this channel and talk about music, because she's one of my favorite artists to discuss and talk about. And I wish she had more albums to talk about, because I covered a lot more other artists than her, but that's just because, it's difficult when you're an independent artist, and there are lots of reasons I think that she's going to slowly reveal over time that will describe why it's been such a long process, what's been going on behind the scenes, why she's been so much, off of social media and things like that. But she's really kind of gearing up now to, like she said, finally give birth. It's been a very long pregnancy. And the fact that, now we know that those singles from 3 years ago are no longer actually, almost 3 years ago, 2 years ago, are no longer actually on this record, I have mixed feelings about that fact. Now, there's 12 songs on this album, and I am happy that it's all new material, because, that's a good thing, right? But I'm curious as to the direction and conceptual arc of the, not just lyrics of this record, but more importantly, the sonics. And the sonics is possibly where I'm a little bit more concerned. Lyrically, I think you can gather that this album is going to be very dark, very, I wouldn't want to say gothic, but very hardcore, as she describes, very mature and self-aware. She described Love is Dead in a recent live video as being like a bad horror film. And I guess she views this new album as being like a stronger, kind of more cohesive body of work. But still a little bit scary, which I love. It seems to me that she's not so crazy about embracing this sort of bubble goth moniker or genre title as she's in the past. That's not to say that some of this music is not a little bit more pop. Now, the first single, which we are going to be discussing, called Savages, is a little bit more of a traditional single length 3-minute song that it's very electronic, it's very EDM, and it is definitely something that could be more catered to radio, even though I don't think Kerli is really thinking at all about possible radio play for anything on this record. But when you look at some of the other titles on the album and the song lengths and everything, you kind of gather that songs like this are sort of the more kind of like they want to have the spotlight. They're a little bit more like songs you would try to promote, in the traditional ways with performances and stuff like that. And that gets me to some of my possible, it breaks my heart to say this, some of my possible issues with Savages. And before I get into that, I just do want to kind of give some context in the fact that, for those who are unaware, I've been so excited to discover what Kerli's album is going to be like, and the music and all of that, that I was very, very concerned early on that that sort of thing in itself was going to become sort of monolithic, and then nothing Kerli ever actually delivered, or when she finally did release this album, would actually measure up to the expectations, because the hype that has been built around this project is, and this is why I have such a hard time with artists, revealing things way too far in advance. It's just too long of a period to sort of build that kind of hype. And I don't really, I don't really think my expectations are ever going to be fully satisfied in some ways. So I've had to sort of, in the last 24 hours, like recenter my expectations here a little bit. And it's a little, I'm not going to lie, it's a little difficult, because, we were so excited just to hear that we're getting a new single. And is this the comeback song that I'm gonna wanna phone home about and post all over social media about and make my parents listen to it till they're sick of it, you know? Is this song, Savages, that song? The first offering that we get from Shadowworks? In my opinion, as of right now, it is not that song for me. There's a lot of potential for this song to grow over time, as I don't think Kerli necessarily even expected it to be, you know, a song that is instantly accessible. I don't think that's necessarily what she's trying to go for with this project. That doesn't mean abandon melody and abandon hook and catchiness, but she's obviously not going through traditional avenues of music making. And this song, if anything, does sound a lot more like some of her collaborations that she's done with several other big electronic producers, such as Seven Lions and Said the Sky and Illenium. It almost sounds too similar, in my opinion, to those types of songs. And I feel a little divorced from some of the more kind of earthy, emotional, kind of ethereal aesthetic that I think that so much of her other songs have imbued there. And there's a lot that live instruments can bring. And I expected, you know, she describes this record as being alternative. I expected this album to be a lot of electronic music, and that's not a shock in any way. And like I said, I was kind of expecting and I was kind of preparing myself to think, you know, Savages may not be that it song for me. It is the first song and the only song we are going to heard for a little while yet. February 22nd is unfortunately still a little ways away. You know, at first it felt so close, and then I was thinking, I was like, that's almost 3 months from now, and 3 months can feel like a long time, and it can also go like that. So we are going to be getting more songs. We're going to get a new song in January and in early February as well. So it's not like complete radio silence from here on out till then. And we still have the Savages music video, which will come out in the middle of December probably, which has just been shot. If you come off the single cover, we're getting this sort of dominatrix, edgy persona, very black and white, very similar to the album cover itself. And I do want to talk about the album cover because I'm much more impressed by the album art than I am by the single cover, but at the same time, I appreciate the single cover. It gets the job done, and I do think it embodies the sort of energy and sonics of this song. The lyrics are extremely jaded and direct, speaking of being scorned and the fact that you've been, you know, mistreated so badly by, you know, ex-lovers and people who have just done harm to you. And so at the end of the day, you decide to, you know, in some ways just give up and just succumb to their manipulative ways and admit that we're all savages at the end of the day. We all kind of hurt each other a little bit. There's that Marina and the Diamonds song, Savages, which comes to mind. It has a similar kind of mentality, obviously. The concept of thinking about men and abusive relationships comes to mind. The lyrics, I'm powerless in your slavery, and I curse this hell, I hate your guts, and I swear I will pay for this craving never again. Fall on rosy thorns for a taste of lethal bliss. This feels almost 007 to me. I don't know why. It just makes me think of a very hardcore kind of bad romance novel movie. Each of my defeats is your victory, and I walk barefoot on a field of swords. You have mastered the art of cruelty. But at the end, we'll be making love like savages. I can definitely relate. The notion, and I mean, I can only imagine, you know, Kerli has not been very open about relationships, especially in more recent times in her life. She's kept that very private, even though she's very open about emotional vulnerability and all these things. I'm very curious to sort of find out, you know, has Kerli been dating? What's her sort of adventure been like in that playing field? But at the same time, I respect her privacy. You know, I understand you want to keep, you know, a lot of that locked away or just move on. Ariana Grande, Thank You Next, you know, just going on from that, try to turn it into a positive thing. This song is very negative, and I don't necessarily see it as retribution as such. You know, comparing this to, like, let's say a positive breakup song like Thank You Next. I know these songs are nothing alike, but it's just in my head, and I just saw the music video for it, which is amazing, by the way. I still sense the self-awareness. It's not just I'm going to, you know, hate you forever and I'm not going to forgive and things that you would think that Kerli would be above, you know. I mean, I get it. I've been in that place where I hate someone so much at that moment for what they've done to me that I'm just like, look, I'm all out of forgiveness, and this is like there is no kind of reparation for this evil that has been done to me. Why are you such a horrible, cruel person? Because at the end of the day, it's not our problem, right? How they treat us. It's how we respond and react to that. And I do think that there is a avenue that needs to be, exercised or let out. And I think that's what this song is all about. It's about, sort of getting out all that angst and frustration. And I think that it was very therapeutic for her to make this song, and I think that it serves its purpose. And I think in the scheme of the album, it's going to sort of stand out as sort of the angstiest and most biting kind of track, and possibly one of the most direct. And I don't have a problem with, in the scope of a 12-song album, having a song like that. I think it'll flow and be very kind of cohesive within the body of work. But having it be the first single as a big comeback, lyrically, I can see where she was coming from, but sonically is where this song really struggles for me. It's too short for a song that doesn't really have a full three refrain chorus structure. It does have a bit of an outro that is a little bit more interesting, I actually think, because it sounds like there's a little bit of a guitar instrumentation that's kind of punctuating the rhythm. And there's something that unfortunately, I don't like necessarily being critical, and I have to because I love Kerli, but the voice, it's very processed, her vocals. And I do have a little bit, in some of her more kind of EDM collaboration tracks, I've noticed that. And, it serves its purpose, and I understand why she does it. But there needs to be a balance of vocals that are a little bit more present, because this song does feel as though it's wandering and it doesn't really have sure footing. I've noticed this, and I notice this with songs. It's like when I try and come up with melodies, it's really hard. And I feel like you can tell when a song just hasn't quite found its groove, or it hasn't quite found its own feet. And this song progresses in that manner, and it just feels a little clumsy in the melody construction, in the chorus, and in also the mixture of the instrumental, because the instrumental is very industrial, it's very propulsive, and there's a lot going on, and it could just drown everything out. And I think that her voice is lost in a little bit of that because of the fact that her voice is auto-tuned to a certain amount that just sort of flattens it out. And it gives her this sort of generic sound, and it doesn't do anything for her vocals for me. And I really want to hear more of her own voice, her vibrato, her unique sound. And we only hear it in a few places in the pre-chorus, when she sings, "And I curse this hell and I hate your guts, and I swear I'll dance with the devil never again." That's where the melody finally gets a chance to shine, and her voice gets a little bit of a spotlight too. So this song, I don't like using the words messy. I don't want to kind of use such negative kind of ways of describing it, but I have to. It's coming out of my mouth. Unfortunately, as of right now, this song is not doing a ton for me, and it is certainly not something that I'm going to be listening to over and over and over again. It doesn't have the ethereal appeal of songs like Feral Hearts. It doesn't have the emotional acoustic vocal appeal of Blossom. And even Diamond Hard was just so danceable. It was just such a good drop. And this song is lacking all three of those things that her three big 2016 singles had. And instead, it just feels very watered down and a bit generic. And I'm already not the hugest fan of EDM because of the fact that I do feel like there's cop-out choruses, that sometimes the electronics swell to a level that's just not enjoyable to listen to because of all the layering that's going on. And sometimes the beat is off and it's not exactly, I don't know, it just doesn't do something for me the way other electronic dance music should. I think pop dance kind of records. And so I'm really kind of almost looking more for ambient stuff from her, more ballads, more acoustic, folk kind of music, more like alternative rock. I'm kind of would love to see a little bit of that return from like her old demos and like Love is Dead. And that, electronic stuff is great in there too. But if it's just full on EDM and the vocals are so processed and also the melody isn't exactly anything to, jump out at you, it's going to be really hard to make an impression on me. So it's an unfortunate thing I have to say, but I'm not feeling this song right now. And I'd be curious in the comments to let me know, Moon Children and people who are familiar or maybe not so familiar with Kerli, what you think. I really do think that this album is going to be phenomenal. I'm not just talking, I really believe that. I'm just looking at the song titles, and there's going to be variety, and it's going to be cohesive. And I really am confident in Kerli. But this song isn't really doing it for me. And it's just a shame because we're going to have to wait a little longer before we get any more music. It's playing the waiting game once again, and, the album is coming, it's very soon, and I am in love with the album art, I'll just throw that out there. When she said it was gonna be dark, I kinda was thinking something with a black background, black clothing, the Ankhs, which I think is a very interesting symbol to include. She's talking about kinda wanting to transcend the witchy vibe, which she calls very 2017, which I think is very interesting. I definitely get an Egyptian vibe, obviously, because of the Ankhs. The black hair, which is obviously a new look for her. And the costuming is very witchy, but it does seem like it's kind of trying to be more than that. It's very confrontational, the album cover, and I think that was the point. It's direct and it's provocative, it's eerie, it's ominous, and it's everything I kind of would have expected. I just coupling that with Savages, it's just not quite there yet for me, the concept and everything. So I just want to know more. So again, like I said, let me know in the comments. Anyone who's new here, I'll link my Love is Dead and Utopia reviews for past Kerli, and I'll also link my reviews to the 2016 singles, as well as all her B-sides. I'll link it all in the description in case you're interested. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace, love, and light, and as Kerli would say, integrity, love, and unity. And I hate that I'm not just saying positive things about this song, given how it's such a big comeback single and it's been so hyped, but that's just the way it is with artists. You're not going to love everything they do, and it's not a slight on them. It's just growing and understanding and sort of experimenting, and that's the beauty of this whole process. Because you never know what you're going to get. And it's kind of exciting, even though it can be frustrating. But there's also the positive side where you're blown away and you weren't even expecting it to be so blown away. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I love you all. Bye.